The crystal glasses clinked softly in the Whitmore mansion's drawing room, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Cassandra Whitmore sat rigid on the ivory settee, her hand resting protectively on her daughter's shoulder. Vivian, 17 years old and heartbreakingly beautiful despite the black silk blindfold covering her eyes, turned her head toward the sound of footsteps approaching.
"Mother,"
Vivian whispered, her voice trembling.
"Someone's here. I can feel something different."
Cassandra's mother, Francine, elegant even in her 70s, stood by the marble fireplace, wringing her hands. They'd been waiting for Dr. Blackwell, the 18th specialist in 3 years. 18 chances, 18 failures, 18 shattered hopes that Vivian would ever see again. But the people who entered weren't wearing white coats. Welcome back to the channel. Where are you watching from, and what time is it over there? Drop your location in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how far this story is reaching. Declan stepped through the doorway first, toolbox in hand, dressed in simple work clothes that marked him as the maintenance man hired to fix the estate's fountain. He looked uncomfortable in the opulent surroundings, his weathered hands gripping the toolbox handle like a lifeline. Behind him, almost hidden in his shadow, was a child. Ember Quinlan was 8 years old, small for her age, with auburn hair that caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the tall windows. She wore a simple mustard yellow dress that had seen better days, and her wide eyes took in the room with an intensity that seemed far too mature for someone so young. But it wasn't the room Ember was staring at. It was Vivian. The darkness around her. Ember's voice was barely audible, but in the silent room, everyone heard it. "It's not natural." Cassandra stiffened. "What did you just say?" Declan's hand shot out, reaching for Ember's shoulder. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The child doesn't understand." But Ember had already slipped past him. Her small feet moved across the Persian rug with purpose, carrying her directly toward Vivian. Before anyone could react, before Cassandra could pull her daughter away, Ember raised her hands. Blue light spiraled from her palms. "What are you doing to my daughter?" Cassandra lunged forward, but Francine caught her arm. "Wait," the elderly woman breathed. "Look, if you think you know where this is going, you're wrong. Hit that subscribe button before the next twist drops. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next." The light wrapped around Vivian like ribbons of pure energy, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. The crystal chandelier overhead flickered. The temperature in the room dropped, then spiked. Ember's small frame trembled with effort, her face scrunched in concentration. And then Vivian gasped. "Mother!" Her hands flew to her blindfold. "I can see colors. Swirling colors. Blues and golds and—" Her voice cracked with emotion. "Mother, there's light." The blue energy faded like mist in sunlight. Ember swayed on her feet, exhausted, her skin pale and clammy. Declan rushed forward to catch her before she collapsed. But even weakened, even barely able to stand, Ember turned to face Cassandra. When she spoke, her voice carried a maturity that didn't match her childlike appearance. "Ma'am, your daughter's eyes aren't sick." The room held its breath. Someone cursed her. Ember's gaze swept the opulent drawing room, as if she could see things invisible to everyone else. Someone in this house wanted her blind. The curse energy. It's so strong. Someone close to you did this on purpose. Cassandra's face went white as marble. Francine clutched at her chest, her breath coming in short gasps. Even Declan looked shaken, though he tried to hide it by adjusting his grip on Ember. That's impossible," Cassandra whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Curses aren't real. This is the 21st century. We don't—" "Mrs. Whitmore." Francine's voice cut through her daughter's denial. "The cold spots in Vivian's room, the symbols I kept finding drawn in dust. The way she got worse every time certain people visited." The elderly woman's hands trembled. "What if it's true?" Vivian's fingers worked at the knot of her blindfold, fumbling with urgency. The black silk fell away, and for the first time in 3 years, her eyes were exposed to the world. She blinked rapidly, once, twice, 3 times. "I can see shapes," she breathed, wonder and disbelief warring in her voice. "Mother, I can see your outline. Grandmother, you're standing by the fireplace. And this child," her gaze fixed on Ember, "you're glowing. Even without the blue light, you're glowing gold." Tears streamed down Cassandra's face. "Vivian, you can really see?" "Not perfectly. Everything's fuzzy, like looking through frosted glass. But yes, Mother, I can see." Vivian's own tears began to fall. "For the first time in 3 years, I'm not living in complete darkness." The moment was broken by Ember's small body going completely limp in Declan's arms. "Ember." He lowered her gently to the floor, checking her pulse. "She's alive, but barely. She gave too much. I warned her this would happen if she—" "Who are you people?" Cassandra demanded, dropping to her knees beside the unconscious child. Up close, she could see how thin Ember was beneath that faded yellow dress, how her clothes had been mended multiple times, how her shoes were worn nearly through at the soles. "What are you?" "We're just trying to help, ma'am." Declan's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his worry as he looked down at Ember's pale face. "We didn't mean to intrude. Ember, she senses things. Dark things. When we arrived to fix your fountain, she felt the curse on your daughter. She couldn't just walk away." "A curse," Francine repeated, moving closer. She knelt beside Ember, her experienced hands checking the child's breathing. "I believe you. God help me. After seeing that light, after seeing my granddaughter's reaction, I believe you." "Grandmother," Cassandra started. "No." Francine's voice was firm. "I've lived in this house for 40 years, Cassandra. I know when something is wrong. And for 3 years, I've been telling you that Vivian's blindness felt unnatural. You said I was being superstitious. You said I was letting grief over losing your father cloud my judgment." She looked up, her eyes blazing. "I was right." Cassandra looked from her mother to her daughter, who was tentatively reaching out to touch objects in the room, testing her limited vision with wonder, to the unconscious child on her floor, to the nervous maintenance man who clearly knew more than he was saying. Every instinct screamed at her to call security, to have these people removed, to get Vivian to a real doctor who could explain what just happened with science and reason. But another part of her, the part that had spent 3 years watching her daughter sink into depression, the part that had exhausted every medical option, the part that had started to lose hope, that part was asking different questions. What if this child was telling the truth? What if someone had cursed Vivian? What if this small, malnourished girl in a faded yellow dress had just performed a genuine miracle? "Security is on their way," a cold voice said from the doorway. "I called them the moment I saw these people accosting you." Everyone turned. Standing in the entrance to the drawing room was a woman in her 40s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit, her severe features arranged in an expression of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morgana," Cassandra said, surprised. "I didn't know you were coming by today." "I'm always here for family, darling." Morgana Whitmore, Cassandra's sister-in-law, stepped into the room. Her gaze swept over Ember's unconscious form with barely concealed contempt. "Though it seems I arrived just in time, these maintenance workers appear to have drugged your daughter with some kind of hallucinogen and are now performing street magic tricks to extort money from you." Comment: "I don't trust Morgana if you're already seeing through her act. Let's see how many of you caught on before the reveal." "No!" Vivian's voice rang out, stronger than it had been in years. "Aunt Morgana, I can see. This child healed me. She—" "Darling, you're in shock." Morgana moved to Vivian's side, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You've been blind for 3 years. Whatever you think you're seeing is just your mind playing tricks after exposure to drugs, or—" "I can see your face, Aunt Morgana." Vivian's voice had gone cold. "It's blurry, but I can see it. And you don't look happy that I can see again. Why is that?" The room went silent. Ember stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Even weakened, even barely conscious, she turned her head toward Morgana. "The curse energy," she whispered. "It's stronger now that she's here. It's coming from her." Morgana's composed expression cracked, just for a second. Just long enough for Cassandra to see something dark flash across her sister-in-law's face. "Security!" Morgana called out, her voice sharp. "Remove these people immediately!" "Wait!" Cassandra stood, placing herself between Morgana and the child on the floor. For 3 years, she'd trusted the doctors. For 3 years, she'd trusted family. For 3 years, she'd watched her daughter suffer. What did she have to lose by trusting this strange child for just a little longer? "Declan, is it?" She looked at the maintenance man. "Pick her up carefully. You're both coming with me to the guest wing. My daughter can see again, and I want to know how. I want to know everything." "Cassandra, you can't be serious," Morgana began. "I'm deadly serious." Cassandra turned to face her sister-in-law, and for the first time, she allowed herself to really look at Morgana's reaction. The way her jaw was clenched, the way her hands had formed fists at her sides, the way her eyes kept darting to Vivian, to Ember, back to Vivian again. "If this child can explain what happened to my daughter," Cassandra continued, her voice steady, "then she deserves a chance to speak. Mother, please cancel security." "With pleasure." Francine was already pulling out her phone. Morgana's composed mask slipped further. "You're making a terrible mistake, Cassandra. These people are con artists. They'll rob you blind and—" "My daughter was already blind," Cassandra interrupted quietly. "And now she's not. That's all the proof I need for now." She turned to Declan. "Bring her." As Declan carefully lifted Ember into his arms, the child's eyes opened fully for the first time. She looked directly at Morgana, and despite her obvious exhaustion, her voice carried clearly through the room. "You did this to her," Ember said simply. "You cursed Vivian. You wanted her blind, and you're not done yet. The curse I just broke. It's only the first layer. There are more, deeper, darker." Her eyes narrowed. "You want them all dead." Morgana's face went perfectly blank. "I don't know what lies this child has been fed, but—" "We'll discuss this privately." Cassandra cut her off, her voice like ice. "All of us. Now!" As the group moved toward the guest wing, Morgana hung back, pulling out her phone. She typed a quick message, her fingers flying across the screen with barely suppressed rage. "The child knows. She broke the first seal. Execute phase 2 immediately." She hit send, then smoothed her expression back into concern before following the others down the hallway. Behind them, unnoticed by anyone, dark shadows seemed to gather in the corners of the drawing room, creeping along the walls like living things. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. And in the doorway, a figure watched from the shadows, tall, dressed in dark robes, with eyes that glowed an unnatural red in the darkness. Silas Vex smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp to be human. "So," he murmured to himself, "the bloodline awakens. How? Inconvenient." His smile widened. "But also, how entertaining. It's been far too long since I've had a real challenge." He faded back into the shadows, leaving behind only a whisper of sulfur and the faint sound of laughter that had no business coming from a human throat. In the guest wing, Cassandra laid Ember down on a 4-poster bed that probably cost more than Declan made in a year. Francine hovered nearby, bringing water and cold compresses. Vivian sat in a chair beside the bed, still testing her limited vision by watching her own hands move through the air. And Morgana stood by the window, her back to them all, radiating tension like a coiled spring. "Now," Cassandra said, turning to Declan. "I want the truth, all of it. Who are you really? What is this child? And what did she mean about curses?" Declan opened his mouth to answer, but the door burst open and a butler rushed in, his face pale with panic. "Mrs. Whitmore, 2 men are here. They say they're the specialists you called for, Dr. Blackwell and Dr. Crane from Johns Hopkins. They insist on seeing Miss Vivian immediately." Cassandra frowned. "I didn't—" "I called them," Morgana interjected smoothly, turning from the window. "Before I knew about this situation, I thought Vivian needed real medical attention." Her smile was perfect, practiced. "I'm sure you don't mind, Cassandra. After all, wouldn't it be wise to have actual doctors examine Vivian, just to make sure she hasn't been harmed by whatever procedure this child performed?" On the bed, Ember's eyes shot open, wide with alarm. "No," she whispered urgently, trying to sit up despite her exhaustion. "Declan, those doctors, they're not real. They're here to finish what she started. If they examine Vivian, if they use those needles—" Her voice cracked with desperation. "It will kill her. Drop a like right now to make sure justice is served. I need to know you're invested in seeing Morgana exposed." The room exploded into chaos as everyone started talking at once. But Cassandra's voice cut through it all, sharp and commanding. "Bring them up," she ordered the butler. "And someone get Dr. Porter from the medical wing. Now!" As footsteps thundered in the hallway outside, Ember grabbed Declan's hand, her small fingers digging into his palm. "Daddy," she whispered, the first time she'd called him that in front of the Whitmores. "We have to stop them. We have to." "I know, little one." Declan's jaw was set in grim determination. "I know." Vivian turned her limited gaze toward the door, her newly awakened vision allowing her to see the shadows of 2 men approaching down the hallway. And in those shadows, she saw something else. Something that made her blood run cold. Darkness. Writhing. Alive. The same darkness that had consumed her 3 years ago, stealing her sight and nearly stealing her will to live. It was back. And this time, it was coming to finish the job. The 2 men who entered the guest wing looked every bit the part of renowned specialists. Dr. Rutherford Blackwell was tall and distinguished, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses that caught the light. His associate, Dr. Helena Crane, was younger but equally polished, carrying a sleek aluminum case that practically screamed expensive medical equipment. "Mrs. Whitmore," Blackwell said warmly, extending his hand. "Thank you for allowing us to examine your daughter. I understand there's been some unusual activity here today." His eyes flicked to Ember, still lying on the bed, and something cold passed through his gaze before the warm smile returned. "Dr. Blackwell." Cassandra shook his hand, though her voice was cautious. "I appreciate you coming on such short notice, but I should tell you that Vivian's condition has actually improved since—" "Psychosomatic response, most likely," Blackwell interrupted smoothly. "False hope can create temporary illusions of recovery. That's why it's crucial we examine her immediately, before any real damage is done by amateur intervention." Another glance at Ember, this one openly contemptuous. Helena set the aluminum case on a side table and opened it with practiced efficiency. Inside, nested in custom foam, were various medical instruments, including a set of wickedly thin needles that gleamed under the room's lighting. "We've developed a revolutionary neural optical procedure," Helena explained, her voice crisp and professional. "It involves precise placement of microneedles at specific pressure points to stimulate the optic nerve. The results have been remarkable in clinical trials." Ember's eyes widened. Despite her exhaustion, she pushed herself up on trembling arms. "No," she whispered. "Declan." "The child needs rest," Blackwell said dismissively. Perhaps someone should take her to another room while we work. We need absolute concentration for this procedure. Show me. Ember's voice was stronger now, cutting through the room's tension. Show me where you're going to put those needles. I hardly think a child needs to. Show her. Cassandra's voice was steel. If this procedure is safe, you should be able to explain it. My background is in pharmaceuticals, Dr. Blackwell. I understand medical terminology. Blackwell's smile tightened, but he gestured to Helena, who pulled out a laminated diagram of a human head, marked with red dots indicating needle placement. Ember slid off the bed, her legs shaky but determined. Declan moved to support her as she approached the diagram. She studied it for a long moment, her small finger tracing the marked points. This one, she said, pointing to a spot near the temple. This is the superficial temporal artery. If you puncture this, she'll bleed into her brain. The needles are designed to avoid, and this one. Ember's finger moved to another mark. This goes through the zygomatic bone directly into the orbital cavity. You'd pierce her eye socket. She looked up at Blackwell, her young face deadly serious. These aren't healing points, these are kill points. Ridiculous, Blackwell scoffed. Mrs. Whitmore, surely you're not going to take medical advice from a child who… Wait. Cassandra stepped closer, examining the diagram. Her pharmaceutical training kicked in, and her face went pale. She's right. This point here, the angle is all wrong. At this trajectory, the needle would go straight through the zygomatic arch into the orbital fissure. She looked up at Blackwell, her eyes hard. This would cause massive trauma, possibly death. An 8-year-old just exposed trained killers pretending to be doctors. If that doesn't make you hit subscribe, I don't know what will. This story only gets more insane from here. You're misreading the diagram, Helena interjected quickly. The depth measurements aren't shown in this simplified version. Then show me the complete version. Cassandra held out her hand. The two doctors exchanged glances. Helena's composure cracked first. Dr. Blackwell, she said quietly, perhaps we should… Be quiet, Helena. But it was too late. Cassandra saw the panic in Helena's eyes, saw the way Blackwell's jaw clenched, saw how both of them were now looking toward the door like cornered animals seeking escape. Who paid you? Cassandra's voice was deadly calm. Who paid you to hurt my daughter? Mrs. Whitmore, you're being paranoid. $500,000, Ember said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. That's what you were paid, by someone with the initials M.W. Helena's face went white. Blackwell's hand moved toward the aluminum case, but Declan was faster, stepping between the doctor and his equipment. I think you both need to start talking, Declan said quietly. Now. The room held its breath. Then Helena broke. We were supposed to make sure she never recovered, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The needles. They would have caused hemorrhaging, made it look like a complication from her existing condition. We were told it would be quick, painless. We needed the money, and she said… Helena's hand flew to her mouth. Oh God, what have we done? She? Cassandra's voice was ice. Who is she? But Helena had already said too much. Blackwell grabbed her arm roughly, pulling her toward the door. We're leaving, now. Security! Cassandra called out. Heavy footsteps thundered in the hallway. Don't let them leave the grounds. Call the police. As security guards surrounded the two fake doctors, Cassandra turned slowly to face Morgana, who had been standing silent by the window throughout the entire confrontation. M.W., Cassandra said softly. Morgana Whitmore. Don't be absurd, Morgana replied, her voice perfectly controlled. Surely you don't think I would… The curse energy, Ember interrupted, her voice weak but certain. It's coming from you. It always has been. Morgana's eyes narrowed, but her smile never faltered. The ramblings of an exhausted child are hardly evidence of anything, Cassandra. No, Cassandra agreed. but attempted murder is. And I intend to find out exactly what you've done. She turned to Declan. I want to hire you, officially, as a security consultant. You and Ember stay here, on the grounds. Find out what's happening in my home. Cassandra, this is ridiculous. Get out, Morgana. Cassandra's voice cut like a blade. Get out of my house, now. For just a moment, Morgana's mask slipped. Something dark and terrible flashed across her face, something that made even Francine take a step back. Then the mask returned, and Morgana smiled. Very well. But you're making a mistake, cousin. A terrible mistake. She walked to the door, then paused. I'll be back. Soon. After she left, the room exhaled collectively. But Ember was already moving toward the door, drawn by something only she could sense.
There's something else,
she whispered.
in the West Wing. Something old. Something dark.
That night, while the rest of the house slept, Ember followed the pull of malevolent energy through darkened hallways. Declan stayed close behind, a protective hand on her shoulder. The trail led them to Vivian's bedroom door. In the dim light from Declan's flashlight, Ember could see marks scratched into the wood. Not random scratches. Letters. Words. Latin words. Oculi tenebris. Ember read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. What does it mean? Declan asked. Ember's hand traced the scratches, and she felt the curse energy pulsing beneath them like a living heartbeat. Eyes in darkness, she translated. She looked up at Declan, her young face grave. This is just the beginning. Whatever cursed Vivian, whatever Morgana started, it's still here, still active, and it's not finished yet. 2 weeks had transformed Ember from the malnourished waif who'd first stumbled into the Whitmore mansion. Regular meals had brought color to her cheeks, and the formal dress Cassandra had insisted on buying her, a soft blue that matched her healing light, made her look like she belonged in the glittering ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. But Ember felt anything but comfortable. Too many people, she whispered to Declan, who looked equally out of place in his rented tuxedo. Too much energy. I can't sense anything specific. Just stay close to Vivian, Declan murmured back. That's all we need to do. Vivian stood nearby, radiant in a champagne gown, her eyes hidden behind designer sunglasses that protected her still healing vision. Over the past 2 weeks, Ember's gentle energy treatments had restored more of her sight each day. She could now see clearly up to 10 feet, though anything beyond remained blurry. The ballroom was packed with Manhattan's elite, all gathered for Whitmore Pharmaceuticals' annual charity gala. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres worth more than most people's weekly grocery bills. Then the energy in the room shifted. Morgana Whitmore made her entrance like a queen arriving at court. She wore a crimson gown that probably cost more than a luxury car, and she carried a black velvet box that immediately drew every eye in the room. "Cassandra, darling," Morgana's voice carried across the ballroom. "I have a gift for you, a peace offering, if you will, to show there are no hard feelings about our little misunderstanding." Cameras flashed as Morgana approached the main stage. A pedestal had been set up specifically for the gift presentation. Morgana had planned this moment carefully. Cassandra mounted the stage reluctantly, Vivian beside her. Ember tried to follow, but security, arranged by Morgana, blocked her path. "Family only on stage, miss," the guard said firmly. "Let me through." Ember pushed against him, but he was immovable. "Declan!" On stage, Morgana opened the velvet box with theatrical flourish. Inside, nestled on white silk, was the largest diamond anyone in the room had ever seen. It was the size of a robin's egg, cut in a teardrop shape that caught the light and threw rainbow sparkles across the crowd. "The Seraph's Tear," Morgana announced, her voice amplified by the microphone. "Blessed by Tibetan healers, purchased for $3.2 million for my beloved cousin and her daughter, as a symbol of family unity and love." The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed like lightning. Social media feeds exploded with photos of the generous gift. But Ember saw what no one else could see. Black smoke, nearly invisible, coiling around the diamond like a serpent. Curse energy so thick and malevolent it made her stomach turn. And it was aimed directly at Vivian. "No!" Ember's scream cut through the applause. She shoved past the security guard with strength that shouldn't have been possible for a child her size, her hands already beginning to glow blue. Time seemed to slow. Cassandra reached for the diamond. Vivian leaned closer to admire it. Morgana smiled, anticipation written in every line of her face. And Ember launched herself across the stage. Her small body collided with the pedestal. The velvet box flew through the air, tumbling end over end. It hit the marble floor and shattered. The diamond bounced once, twice, and exploded in a cloud of black smoke. Morgana just tried to murder someone with a $3 million cursed diamond in front of 500 witnesses. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you even doing? Hit that button. Screams erupted from the crowd. People stumbled backward, hands over their mouths and noses. But the smoke wasn't dispersing naturally. It was gathering, coalescing, forming shapes that writhed and reached toward Vivian like grasping hands. Ember's hands blazed with blue light. She thrust them forward, and the light expanded into a dome that caught the black smoke before it could reach Vivian. The curse energy fought against her containment, pushing and testing for weaknesses. "Everyone see this!" Ember shouted, her young voice straining with effort. "This is what she tried to give you, not a blessing, a curse! It would have killed Vivian slowly over weeks, making it look like natural causes." The smoke writhed within Ember's blue dome, clearly visible to everyone with smartphones now recording. The curse energy was so strong that even non-sensitive people could see it. Oily, dark, wrong. With a final push of power, Ember compressed the smoke into a tiny sphere and crushed it. The curse energy dissipated with a sound like breaking glass. Then Ember collapsed. But the damage was done. Cameras had captured everything. The black smoke, Ember's glowing hands, the curse being destroyed. "That child is disturbed!" Morgana's voice rang out, perfectly pitched between anger and hurt. "I spent $3.2 million on a blessed gem to help this family, and she destroys it with her parlor tricks, her delusions." Within minutes, #CursedDiamond was trending. The internet split down the middle. Half convinced Ember had saved the Whitmores from assassination. Half certain she was a disturbed child who destroyed a priceless gift with staged special effects. But while the chaos raged at the plaza, miles away at the Whitmore estate, a figure in dark robes slipped through shadows that shouldn't have existed. Silas Vex moved through Vivian's bedroom like smoke himself, his red eyes glowing in the darkness. On her nightstand, he placed an antique music box, ornate, beautiful, innocent-looking. "Sweet dreams, little heiress," he whispered, then vanished as completely as if he'd never been there. Hours later, when Ember, Cassandra, and Vivian finally returned to the estate, Ember immediately sensed wrongness in the air. "Something's here," she gasped, already exhausted from containing the cursed diamond. Something new. In Vivian's room. But her legs gave out before she could finish the warning. Declan caught her as she fell, unconscious from overexertion. "Get her to bed," Cassandra ordered, supporting a weary Vivian. "We'll check the room." But by then, it was too late. Vivian had already seen the music box. Already been drawn to its antique beauty, already reached out to open it. The melody that played was hauntingly beautiful, a lullaby that seemed to reach into the soul and pull at something vital. And as Vivian listened, she didn't notice the dark energy that began to seep from the box, wrapping around her like invisible chains. That night, the nightmares began. Vivian's screams shattered the pre-dawn silence.
They're eating my eyes. The shadows, they're inside my head, eating my eyes.
Cassandra burst into her daughter's room to find Vivian clawing at her face, her newly restored vision clouded with terror. Blood seeped from where her nails had broken skin. "Sweetheart, it's just a dream." "No!" Vivian's eyes were wild, unfocused. "They're real. I can see them even when I'm awake now. Black things with teeth, crawling behind my eyelids." It had been 3 days since the gala. 3 days since the music box appeared. 3 days of Vivian's condition deteriorating despite every medical test showing nothing physically wrong. And Ember was too weak to help. The child had pushed herself to exhaustion, destroying the cursed diamond. Now she could barely sit up, let alone trace the source of this new curse that was slowly devouring Vivian from the inside out. "I'm trying," Ember whispered from her bed in the guest wing, tears streaming down her pale face as Vivian's distant screams echoed through the mansion. "I'm trying so hard, but I can't find it. The curse, it's hidden somewhere. I can feel it, but I can't." The doorbell rang. Declan's hand immediately went to Ember's shoulder, protective. "Stay here." But when Cassandra opened the door, it wasn't Morgana standing there. It was a woman in her 30s with auburn hair, the same shade as Ember's, flanked by 2 lawyers and a social worker holding an official-looking folder. "Cassandra Whitmore?" the woman said, her voice trembling with emotion. "My name is Indy Caro, and I'm here for my daughter." "Oh, you thought Morgana was the only threat? Keep watching. This twist is going to destroy you. And if you're not following along with notifications on, you're missing the best parts." The conference room at the estate became a battlefield. "Her name isn't Ember," Indy declared, documents spread across the mahogany table. "It's Grace Caro. I gave birth to her 8 years ago in Nevada. I was young, struggling with addiction. I made the terrible choice to give her up." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "But I've been clean for 3 years. I've been searching for my baby girl ever since." "That's impossible," Declan said flatly. "Ember has been with me since she was 2 years old. The monastery took her in after you stole her from the foster system," one of Indy's lawyers interrupted. "We have documentation that Grace Caro went missing from state custody 7 years ago, and here's a DNA test proving Ms. Caro is the biological mother." Cassandra examined the DNA results with her pharmaceutical expertise. They looked legitimate, professional, impossible to dispute without running new tests. "These abilities she claims to have," Indy continued, her voice breaking, "they're not real. They're demonic influences. This man," she pointed at Declan, "has been brainwashing her, making her believe she has powers. I want to cure my daughter, bring her back to God." Behind her, a man in clerical clothing stepped forward. "I'm Father Thornton from the Church of Divine Restoration. We've dealt with cases like this before. Children who've been manipulated into believing they have supernatural abilities. With proper treatment, prayer, counseling, spiritual cleansing, we can help Grace understand that what she thinks are powers are actually demonic possession." Indy finished. "Please, I just want my daughter back." The family court hearing was a nightmare. Ember sat small and terrified in a chair too big for her, watching lawyers argue over her future. Morgana sat in the gallery, her face arranged in sympathetic concern, but Ember could see the curse energy radiating from her like heat waves. "Your Honor," Indy's lawyer argued, "Mr. Declan has no legal custody documentation. These adoption papers from a monastery aren't recognized by any state authority. Meanwhile, DNA evidence conclusively proves Ms. Caro is the biological mother. The child has clearly been coached to perform these supernatural demonstrations," another lawyer added. "Lights, smoke effects, all easily faked with modern technology. Mr. Declan has been exploiting this child, possibly for financial gain, definitely for attention." Judge Patricia Kowalski looked at Ember with pity. "Young lady, do you remember your mother?" Ember's memories were fragments: a monastery garden, Declan's kind face, training with other children who could see what others couldn't. But before that, only shadows and the feeling of being lost.
I don't know,
Ember whispered.
She's been brainwashed,
Indy sobbed.
My poor baby doesn't even remember me.
The judge's gavel struck. Pending further investigation, I'm granting temporary custody to Ms. Caro. The child will—
No!
Ember's scream shook the courtroom. Blue light exploded from her hands, cracking the wooden table.
She's not my mother. This is Morgana's plan. If you give me to her, Vivian and Francine will die.
Security moved in. The judge ordered Ember removed, and in the chaos, Indy obtained a restraining order. Ember was forbidden from going within 500 feet of the Whitmore estate. That night, Francine couldn't sleep. Vivian's screams had become constant, and Cassandra was with her daughter, exhausted and desperate. The elderly woman wandered into Vivian's room, hoping to find something, anything that might explain the nightmares. That's when she saw it. The music box on the nightstand, beautiful, innocent, calling to her. Francine opened it. The melody was lovely, like a lullaby from her childhood. She smiled, listening. Then the nightmares crashed into her mind like a tidal wave of darkness. Ember felt it the moment Francine touched the music box. Felt the curse double its power, feeding on 2 victims now instead of 1.
No,
she gasped, stumbling out of the courthouse-mandated hotel room where Indy had locked her.
No, no, no. Grace, get back here,
Indy shouted. But Ember was already running, Declan close behind. The restraining order didn't matter. The custody battle didn't matter. If she didn't destroy that music box now, Vivian and Francine would be dead by morning. This 8-year-old is about to violate a restraining order to save 2 lives. And if that doesn't make your heart race, check your pulse. Smash that like button if you're rooting for Ember. They reached the estate at 2 a.m. Ember's hands were already glowing as she ran through the halls, following the curse energy to its source. Vivian's room. The nightstand. The beautiful, terrible music box. Ember grabbed it with both hands. Blue light exploded outward like a supernova. The music box shattered. The curse energy shrieked as it was torn apart. Every light in the mansion blazed brighter than daylight for 3 seconds. Neighbors called 911, reporting a fire. Some claimed to see an explosion. Smartphones captured the blue glow visible through every window of the estate. And when police arrived, they found Ember collapsed on Vivian's floor, the destroyed remains of an antique music box scattered around her. "You're under arrest," the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. "Destruction of property, violating a restraining order."
"She's not my mother,"
Ember screamed as they led her away. Her voice echoed through the mansion, desperate and terrified.
"Morgana is trying to kill you all. Please, you have to believe me. She's not my mother."
But the handcuffs clicked shut anyway. And in the shadows of the driveway, Morgana watched the police car drive away, a smile playing at her lips. Phase 3 was already in motion. 1 week in juvenile detention felt like a lifetime. Ember sat in her cell, sensing Vivian and Francine's nightmares even from miles away. Weaker now without the music box, but still present, still feeding on them slowly. And she could do nothing. Meanwhile, Cassandra tried to maintain normalcy. The board meeting at Whitmore Pharmaceuticals headquarters couldn't be postponed. A $4 billion merger hung in the balance. To show strength and family unity, she brought Francine and Vivian, both still pale and exhausted from their ordeal. "Thank you all for coming," Cassandra began, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes. "Let's discuss the merger terms." "Before we begin," Morgana interrupted smoothly, "I took the liberty of arranging refreshments. We have a long meeting ahead." She gestured to catering staff who entered with a silver tea service. Cassandra hesitated, but refusing would seem paranoid. She accepted a cup. Francine took one gratefully. Vivian, still recovering, sipped hers slowly. The tea was excellent, perfectly brewed, subtly poisoned. 5 minutes into the meeting, Cassandra's vision blurred. Excuse me. I feel... Francine's teacup clattered to the floor. Her lips were turning blue, her breathing labored. Grandmother? Vivian tried to stand, then collapsed, her body seizing violently. Call 911! Someone screamed. Morgana stood frozen, one hand pressed to her mouth in perfect horror. Inside, she was counting seconds until the poison finished its work. New York Presbyterian Hospital's emergency room erupted in controlled chaos. 3 Whitmores wheeled in simultaneously, all critical, all dying. Dr. Raymond Keller ran toxicology tests with increasing alarm. Nightshade alkaloids, but there's something else. Something I've never seen. It's attacking their organs like acid. They have hours at most. In the hallway, Morgana accepted condolences from hospital staff, her face a mask of grief. Such a tragedy, she whispered. First the child's delusions, now this. The family is cursed. Declan's phone lit up with a news alert. Whitmore family poisoned. Police investigate attempted murder. He was on his feet before he finished reading. Guard, he shouted at the juvenile detention facility. I need to see Ember Quinlan, now. Visiting hours they're dying. The people she was trying to protect are dying. Officer Martinez, who'd witnessed Ember's gentle nature during her week in detention, looked at Declan's face and made a decision that would end her career. Cell 12 door just malfunctioned, she said quietly. Might take me 10 minutes to notice. That officer just sacrificed her career for an 8-year-old she barely knows. If you're not emotionally invested in this story by now, you might want to check if you have a soul. Subscribe if you're Team Ember. Security at New York Presbyterian had been doubled. Morgana had insisted, claiming enemies of the family might attack again. In reality, she wanted to ensure no one could interfere with the poison's work, especially not a certain 8-year-old girl. But Declan was resourceful. He pulled the fire alarm on the ground floor. Evacuation protocols kicked in immediately. In the chaos of patients being moved, nurses running, and security redirecting, a small figure in a juvenile detention jumpsuit slipped through the stairwell. Ember ran like her life depended on it, like 3 lives depended on it. ICU, 3rd floor, room 307. 2 guards stood outside the door. No one enters. Ember didn't slow down. Her hands began to glow, not blue this time, but gold. Desperate love awakened something deeper, something ancient in her bloodline. She ran straight at the locked door and phased through it like a ghost. Dr. Keller, checking monitors inside, stumbled backward in shock as a child materialized through solid steel. Impossible, he breathed. But Ember had no time for explanations. 3 people she loved were dying. Cassandra first. Ember placed small hands on the woman's chest. Golden light, warm, pure, alive, flooded from her palms. The monitors flatlined, then spiked. Cassandra's eyes flew open with a gasping breath. Ember moved to Francine. More golden light. Another flatline. Another resurrection. Finally, Vivian. But Ember was fading now, her small body trembling, her light dimming. Please, she whispered, pressing her hands to Vivian's chest. Please don't leave me. Not when I just found you. The light pulsed weakly. Vivian's monitors steadied. All 3 Whitmores were breathing, and Ember collapsed, her own heart stopping. No! Dr. Keller lunged forward, starting CPR. Someone get a crash cart. We're losing her. But even as he worked, he knew this wasn't a medical emergency. The child had given everything, her life force, her energy, her very soul, to save 3 people she barely knew. And now she was paying the price. As Ember's heart stopped, Cassandra's world exploded in light and memory. A hospital room, 8 years ago, 2 bassinets, 2 babies crying, then screaming, her own voice. Where's my baby? Where's my other baby? A nurse she'd never seen before, wheeling out the second bassinet. Morgana's face in the doorway, watching, smiling. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. Your second daughter didn't make it. Cardiac arrest. We did everything we could." But that was a lie. That was always a lie. "Twins," Cassandra gasped, her eyes flying open. "I had twins. Vivian and—" She looked at Ember's dying form. "Oh, God. Ember!" The villain stole her own cousin's baby and made her think it died. If you're not subscribed after that reveal, I genuinely don't understand you. Hit that button right now. Francine, still weak but conscious, grabbed Dr. Keller's arm. "Hospital records, 8 years ago. Birth records for Cassandra Whitmore. Get them, now!" The shaken doctor didn't argue. He'd just watched a child phase through a door. Reality had already broken. Minutes later, archived files appeared on a computer screen. 2 birth certificates. Vivian Whitmore. Healthy, 7 Fals 3 OZ baby girl. Whitmore, B. Deceased, 6 LBs 8 OZ. Clipped to the death certificate was a Polaroid, standard for families seeking closure. A tiny infant, auburn hair, peaceful in death, except for the birthmark on her left shoulder blade. A crescent moon. "I saw that mark," Francine whispered. "When Ember changed after swimming. The exact same mark." Vivian suddenly gasped, her empathic abilities, awakened by Ember's healing weeks ago, exploding to life. "She's my sister. I can feel our souls. They're connected. They've always been connected." The revelation hit Cassandra like lightning. Maternal instinct, suppressed for 8 years by dark magic and false memories, roared to life. "No!" Cassandra lunged for Ember's body. "You don't get to die. Not when I just found you." She pressed her hands to Ember's chest. Vivian did the same. Golden light erupted from both women. Feedback loop of life energy, soul recognition, mother and sister refusing to let go. The hospital room blazed like a star. Monitors shrieked. 24 medical staff stood frozen, witnessing the impossible. Ember's eyes fluttered open. "Mama?" she whispered. 30 minutes later, Morgana arrived expecting to claim her victory. Instead, she found 4 Whitmores alive and aware. Cassandra stood, her eyes blazing with fury. "You stole my daughter. You cursed Vivian. You tried to kill us all." Her voice was deadly calm. "Security, don't let her leave." But Morgana pressed a button on her watch. Smoke bombs exploded in the corridor. Alarms shrieked. In the chaos, she ran, already texting. "They know everything. Execute contingency plan. Kill them all." Silas Vex's response was immediate. "With pleasure." 24 hours after the hospital miracle, the Whitmore estate was a fortress. Private security patrolled every entrance. Cameras monitored every corridor. But Cassandra knew walls and guards couldn't stop what was coming. "We need proof," she said, watching Ember sleep fitfully on the sofa. Her daughter, the word still felt impossible and perfect, was alive but drained. "Legal proof that will stand up in court." "The hospital records were altered," Francine said grimly. "The death certificate is official." Morgana covered her tracks well. Not well enough. Declan stood by the window, his weathered face set with determination. "Ember can trace the curse origins. If we find Morgana's ritual chamber, we find evidence." When Ember woke, they moved as a unit through the mansion. The child's eyes glowed faintly gold as she followed invisible trails of dark energy like a bloodhound on a scent. "The West Wing," she whispered. "It's strongest there." Cassandra's face went pale. "That's Morgana's section. She always kept it locked. Said she stored personal items." "Personal items," Declan repeated darkly. "Right." Using Cassandra's master key, they breached the locked door. Behind it, a hidden staircase descended into darkness. The air grew colder with each step, thick with malevolence that made even Declan's skin crawl. The basement had been converted into something from a nightmare. Blood sigils covered every wall, drawn in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Shelves lined with jars containing things that shouldn't exist, preserved organs, venomous creatures suspended in amber liquid, herbs that reeked of decay. At the room's center stood an altar draped in black cloth. On the altar were 3 voodoo dolls. Each was meticulously crafted to resemble a specific person: Cassandra, Vivian, Francine. The detail was horrifying. Strands of real hair, fabric from their actual clothing, painted features that captured their likenesses perfectly, and each had pins driven through the eyes. Your villain has been torturing people with voodoo dolls for 3 years from a basement torture chamber. If this doesn't make you hit the like button out of pure shock, I don't know what will.
"Oh my God,"
Cassandra breathed. Beside the dolls lay photographs, fingernail clippings, more hair samples. Everything needed for sympathetic magic. To harm the dolls was to harm the people they represented. "Photograph everything," Declan ordered, pulling out his phone. "Every sigil, every jar, every piece of evidence." Ember moved to a locked drawer built into the altar's base. Her hands glowed briefly, and the lock clicked open. Inside, a leather-bound journal and a stack of contracts. She opened the journal with trembling hands. Year 1. Blind the heir. Make it look natural. Slow progression. Multiple specialists must fail. Year 2. Strengthen the curse. Weaken the family's resolve. Plant seeds of distrust. Year 3. Eliminate them all. Frame Cassandra for embezzlement. Take control of Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. "This is it," Cassandra whispered, reading over Ember's shoulder. "This is proof of everything." The contracts were even more damning. Payment records to Silas Vex, $2.7 million over 3 years for spiritual services. A disgraced priest turned dark practitioner. His history detailed in meticulous notes. But the most damning evidence was a bank statement clipped to the final page. Payment to Gloria Tennyson, $100,000. Date, 8 years ago, 1 day after Cassandra gave birth. Memo. Services rendered. "The nurse," Francine gasped. "The one who told you your second baby died. Morgana paid her to steal Ember." The lights flickered. Temperature plummeted so fast, their breath became visible fog. "You've seen too much," a voice intoned from the stairway entrance. Silas Vex stood there, taller than any human should be, his eyes glowing red in the darkness. Shadow creatures coalesced around him, living darkness with too many limbs and mouths that opened wrong. "Ember, behind me!" Declan shoved the child back, pulling blessed amulets from his jacket. They blazed with white light, creating a protective barrier. But Silas merely laughed. "A guardian! How quaint!" He gestured, and shadow tendrils shot forward. Declan's barriers held for 3 seconds. Then the darkness broke through, wrapping around his throat, lifting him off the ground. "Daddy!" Ember screamed. Silas's creatures advanced on Cassandra and Ember, darkness reaching with hungry intent. The basement door exploded inward. Vivian stood there, her eyes blazing gold, not with Ember's healing light, but with empathic power that let her see the curses as tangible things. "Mother!" she shouted. "The red tendril on the left! Cut it!" Cassandra didn't question. She thrust her hand forward instinctively, and golden light, a mother's protective instinct weaponized, shot from her palm. The tendril severed. Silas howled. "The creature by the altar. Its core is in the center mass." Cassandra struck again. The shadow creature dissipated like smoke. Working together, mother and daughter tore through Silas's defenses. Vivian could see the vulnerabilities. Cassandra could strike them. Ember, seeing her chance, gathered every ounce of remaining strength. Her hands blazed brighter than they ever had, pure golden sunlight in the darkness. "Get out of my house!" she screamed, releasing everything. The blast of light was blinding. The altar shattered. The voodoo dolls disintegrated. Blood sigils burned off the walls. Silas's shadow creatures evaporated with shrieks that sounded almost relieved. And Silas himself was thrown backward, his robes catching fire, his carefully tattooed curse marks burning away from his skin. He fled, badly wounded, leaving behind blood and the stench of sulfur. 3 women with no combat training just destroyed a dark sorcerer using nothing but family bonds and golden light. If that's not the most badass thing you've seen this week, you need better content. Subscribe now. In the silence that followed, Declan collapsed, gasping. Ember fell to her knees. Cassandra and Vivian caught each other, both trembling from exertion they didn't understand. "Evidence," Declan croaked. "Did we get the evidence?" His phone lay on the floor, still recording. Every word, every image, everything. "We got it," Cassandra confirmed. "We got everything." They called the police, called lawyers, set in motion the legal machinery that would finally bring Morgana down. But as they climbed the stairs back to the main house, Ember stopped, her hand on the doorframe. "She won't go quietly," she whispered. "This isn't over. She'll strike one more time, with everything she has left." In the shadows behind them, a single drop of Silas's blood remained on the floor, evidence for DNA testing. But it was also still connected to him, still a link. And through that link, miles away, Silas Vex felt everything that had happened. "Contingency plan," he rasped into his phone. "Morgana, it's time. Everything. Everyone. Burn it all down." Manhattan Family Court buzzed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. The Whitmore case had become a media sensation. Billionaire family drama, curses, kidnapping, and attempted murder all wrapped into one sensational package. Morgana Whitmore entered like she was walking a red carpet. Designer suit, perfect hair, confident smile. Out on $10 million bail, surrounded by the most expensive lawyers money could buy. "I'm the victim here," she told reporters, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "My unstable cousin and her delusional children are trying to frame me. It's tragic, really." Inside the courtroom, Judge Patricia Kowalski's sharp eyes missed nothing. "This is an emergency hearing regarding custody of the minor child currently known as Ember Quinlan and criminal charges against Morgana Whitmore. Let's begin." Morgana's lead attorney stood, his voice smooth as silk. "Your Honor, we'd like to call Indy Caro to the stand." The woman who claimed to be Ember's mother entered, looking appropriately distressed. Her testimony was polished, rehearsed. "That's my daughter Grace," Indy sobbed, pointing at Ember. "She's been brainwashed into believing she's someone else. The DNA test proves I'm her mother. Please, I just want my baby back." She presented the falsified DNA results with shaking hands, but Cassandra's legal team was ready. "Your Honor," her attorney said, standing, "we present photographic evidence." He displayed 2 images side by side on the courtroom screens. "This is a hospital Polaroid from 8 years ago, showing baby girl Whitmore B, supposedly deceased. Note the distinctive crescent moon birthmark on her left shoulder blade." The second photo appeared. Ember in a swimsuit, the same birthmark clearly visible. The birthmarks are identical, but we have more. Dr. Helena Crane took the stand, her face pale but determined. "I was paid $500,000 by Morgana Whitmore to ensure Vivian Whitmore never recovered from her blindness. The treatment plan Dr. Blackwell and I presented would have killed her. I'm testifying now because I can't live with what I almost did." Morgana's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. Then came the video deposition. Gloria Tennyson appeared on screen, her face gaunt from cancer, oxygen tubes in her nose. But her eyes were clear and determined. "My name is Gloria Tennyson. I was the night nurse on duty when Cassandra Whitmore gave birth to twins 8 years ago." Her voice was steady, despite her obvious illness. Morgana Whitmore paid me $100,000 to steal the second baby, tell everyone she died, and deliver her to a couple named Caro. The courtroom erupted. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Gloria continued. The Caros were paid to raise the baby for 2 years. Then Morgana stopped the payments. They abandoned the child at a monastery in upstate New York. I've lived with this guilt every day since. I'm dying now. I want to die with a clear conscience. The video ended in silence so complete you could hear the courtroom's ventilation system. A dying woman just confessed to stealing a baby on her deathbed because she couldn't live with the guilt. If you're not emotionally wrecked right now, congratulations on being dead inside. Like this video if you have feelings. We also have new DNA results, Cassandra's attorney announced. Conducted under court supervision to prevent tampering. They conclusively prove Ember Quinlan is Cassandra Whitmore's biological daughter. He displayed the results, then presented analysis of Indy's DNA test. This test was faked using Cassandra's own DNA samples, stolen from Whitmore Pharmaceuticals' medical files when Morgana served on the board 3 years ago. Indy Caro was paid to play a role. The child she claims is hers is actually, Your Honor! Morgana's lawyer tried to interrupt, but it was futile. The evidence kept coming. Photographs of the occult chamber, walls covered in blood sigils. The voodoo dolls with pins through their eyes. Bank statements showing $2.7 million paid to Silas Vex. The journal detailing a 3-year murder plot. Then Vivian took the stand. She wore dark glasses to protect her still healing eyes. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. I was blind for 3 years. 17 specialists couldn't help me. Then Ember touched me, and I saw light for the first time since I was 14. She described the curses, the nightmares, the slow death Morgana had planned. Psychosomatic, Morgana's lawyer argued desperately. Stress-induced blindness, cured by the power of suggestion? Vivian removed her glasses. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, visible to everyone in the courtroom. Not blindingly bright, but unmistakable. Evidence of power transferred, of healing that transcended medicine. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Even the judge leaned forward, her professional detachment cracking. That, Vivian said quietly, is not psychosomatic. Judge Kowalski reviewed the mountain of evidence. The photographs, the testimonies, the DNA results, the occult paraphernalia preserved as evidence. Even Silas Vex's blood, DNA matched to a disgraced priest with a documented history of dark practices. I've presided over this court for 20 years, the judge said finally. I've never seen a case like this, but the evidence is overwhelming. She looked directly at Morgana. Morgana Whitmore. This court finds that you orchestrated an 8-year conspiracy involving kidnapping, attempted murder, fraud, and practices that, regardless of one's beliefs about the supernatural, resulted in demonstrable harm to multiple people. Ember Quinlan is conclusively proven to be Ember Rose Whitmore, daughter of Cassandra Whitmore. Custody is granted to her biological mother. The gavel fell. Furthermore, your bail is hereby revoked. Marshals, take her into custody. Morgana's composure finally shattered. As marshals approached, her face twisted with rage. You haven't won, she screamed, fighting against the handcuffs. Silas will finish what I started. He's already on his way. You'll all be dead by... A marshal's hand covered her mouth, but the threat echoed through the courtroom. The villain just threatened to murder everyone from inside a courtroom while being arrested. This story is absolutely unhinged, and I'm here for it. Subscribe if you want to see how this ends. Outside, the media frenzy was deafening. But inside a black sedan 3 blocks away, Silas Vex watched the courthouse on his phone screen, his burned face healing with unnatural speed. As you wish, Morgana, he murmured. Everyone dies tonight. He made a call. Bring them all. Every practitioner who owes me a debt. We end this at the estate. Sunset. Ember felt the malevolence spike from miles away. She grabbed Cassandra's hand, her small face going pale. "He's coming," she whispered. "Tonight, with everything he has." Cassandra pulled both her daughters close. Vivian and Ember, finally together, finally safe. Except they weren't safe yet. The final battle was still ahead. The Whitmore estate felt different as they returned from the courthouse. Victory should have brought relief, but Ember's restlessness infected everyone. "He's coming," she told Declan, pacing the drawing room. "Silas won't let this end in a courtroom. He needs to finish the death ritual, or the curse will backlash on him. He'll die if he doesn't complete what he started." Declan nodded grimly. "I'll call for backup. The monastery, other guardians." "They're hours away," Ember interrupted. "He'll be here tonight." Security tripled. Armed guards patrolled. Cameras monitored every approach. It wouldn't be enough. At midnight, every light in the estate died simultaneously. Then the security guards began falling. Not shot, not attacked, simply collapsing unconscious where they stood. A sleeping hex, ancient and powerful. Fog rolled across the manicured grounds, thick and unnatural, carrying shapes within it. Shadow creatures, half-formed and hungry. At the front gate, 4 figures emerged from the mist. Silas Vex stood at their center, his burned face partially healed but covered in angry scars. The curse marks that once decorated his skin were gone, burned away by Ember's light. But he'd found other sources of power. 3 dark practitioners flanked him, summoned from across the country, each owing him debts that could only be paid in blood. "Come out, little healer," Silas called, his voice carrying supernaturally. "Face your destiny." Declan met them at the gate, protective amulets blazing white light. "You're not getting past me." "How noble," Silas gestured lazily. The battle was brief and brutal. Declan took down one practitioner with a burst of light that sent the man fleeing into the night, his connection to dark magic severed. But the other 2 overwhelmed him with coordinated attacks. Shadow tentacles pierced his defenses, lifted him off the ground, and hurled him through a hedge. He hit the ground hard and didn't move. Silas and his remaining allies breached the mansion. Cassandra had already hidden Francine in the panic room. The elderly woman was still recovering and couldn't fight. Now she stood in the grand foyer with both her daughters. The same room where this had all begun. Where Ember had first healed Vivian. Where everything had changed. "How poetic," Silas said, entering with his practitioners. "Full circle. This is where you die." "You're not touching my family," Cassandra said, her voice steel. Silas smiled. "I'll offer you a deal. Give me the girl. Let me complete the sacrifice. I'll make it quick, painless. The rest of you can live. Fight me, and everyone dies screaming." Cassandra's response was immediate. She stepped forward, placing herself between Silas and her daughters. "You'll have to go through me first." Vivian moved to stand beside her mother, her eyes beginning to glow gold. "Through us," she corrected. Ember stepped forward last, completing the triangle. Her small hands began to blaze with golden light. "Through all of us." "So be it." Silas raised his hands. 3 generations of women are about to fight a dark sorcerer and his army in their own living room. If you leave this video before seeing how this ends, you're missing the best fight scene I've ever written. Don't you dare click away. What followed was a battle that defied natural law. Silas hurled curse bolts, concentrated dark energy designed to wither and kill. Cassandra raised her hands instinctively, and shields of golden light materialized, deflecting the attacks. She didn't know how she was doing it, didn't care. Her daughters needed protection, and her body responded. The 2 practitioners attacked from the sides. One sent shadow creatures skittering across the marble floor. The other chanted in a language that hurt to hear, trying to summon something worse. Vivian closed her eyes, her empathic abilities expanding. She could feel the practitioner's emotions, their guilt, their fear, their desperate need to please Silas to pay off debts. She grabbed those emotions and twisted them, weaponized them, turned them inward. One practitioner collapsed, paralyzed by the weight of every life he'd ruined. The other screamed and fled, unable to face the reflection of his own corrupted soul. That left Silas. "Clever," he admitted, "but parlor tricks won't save you from a master." He raised both hands, and true darkness poured forth. Not shadow creatures, but the absence of light itself. It rolled toward them like a tsunami of void. Ember stepped forward. In that moment, she understood. Her golden light wasn't just healing, it was purification. Life in its purest form, and life could burn away any darkness. 8 years of suppressed power, 8 years of growing up stolen, cursed, hidden, 8 years of searching for home. She released it all. Her hands blazed like twin suns. The golden light exploded outward in a wave that lit up the entire estate. Neighbors 3 blocks away saw it through their windows and thought dawn had come early. The darkness didn't just retreat, it disintegrated. The shadow creatures evaporated with sounds almost like relief. The curse energy that had saturated the mansion for 3 years burned away like morning mist. And Silas, at the epicenter, screamed. The new curse marks he'd tattooed onto his skin after losing the old ones. They burned. The dark power he'd cultivated for decades, it severed. The connection to forces beyond mortality, it snapped. He collapsed, just a man now, powerless, mortal, defeated. Ember swayed, about to collapse again from exhaustion. A golden figure materialized behind her, translucent, ancient, wearing robes that seemed woven from light itself. In the panic room, Francine gasped, recognizing the face from old family portraits. "Theodore," she whispered. "Theodore Whitmore." The ancestor spirit placed a hand on Ember's shoulder, and power flowed into her, not draining, but replenishing, filling what she'd emptied. "This child sacrificed herself for family," Theodore said, his voice resonating through dimensions. "Her love awakened our bloodline's ancient gift, the power to heal that we've carried for generations but lost through time. She has restored it." He looked at Cassandra. "You've suffered greatly, daughter, but your family is complete again. Protect this gift. Use it wisely. Let love be your guide." Theodore's form began to fade, but before he disappeared completely, he raised his hands. Golden light pulsed outward, sinking into the estate's walls, floors, foundation. Blessing it, strengthening the wards permanently. "Thank you, grandfather," Cassandra whispered. Then he was gone. Police arrived to find Silas Vex unconscious and powerless. Just a criminal now, easily arrested. In prison, Morgana heard the news of his defeat and broke down completely, screaming until guards sedated her. Both would spend decades behind bars. Days later, peace finally settled over the Whitmore estate. The solarium, the room with the camellia flowers, had become the family's favorite gathering place. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating everything with warmth. Francine sat knitting contentedly. Vivienne curled in a chair reading, her eyesight fully restored, no longer needing even dark glasses. Declan worked on a crossword puzzle, occasionally asking for help with difficult clues. And Ember sat in Cassandra's lap, small and childlike. Finally allowed to just be 8 years old. "There's one more thing you should know," Cassandra said softly, stroking Ember's auburn hair. "Before they told me you died, I'd already named you. The original birth certificate, before Morgana altered it, said Ember Rose Whitmore." Ember's eyes widened. That's my name. Declan didn't give it to me. I've always just known it was my name." "Destiny," Vivienne said from her chair. "Your soul remembered even when your mind couldn't." "From now on," Cassandra said, holding both daughters close, "we face everything together. No more secrets, no more separation." "And anyone who tries to hurt our family," Vivian added, reaching out to clasp her sister's hand, "will have to deal with both of us." Their powers resonated where their hands touched, golden light sparkling briefly, warm and alive. Ember smiled, then asked the most important question of all. "Mama, can we have chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast tomorrow?" Cassandra's tears fell freely, joy and relief and love overwhelming her. "Every single morning if you want them, sweetheart. Every single morning." The family embraced as sunlight bathed them in golden warmth. A family fractured by evil, but made whole again by love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her long-lost daughter. Finally, they were home. 6 months later, Ember Rose Whitmore stood in the mansion's garden, teaching Vivian how to channel her empathic abilities constructively. Both girls' eyes glowed gold as they practiced together. Inside, Cassandra worked in her study, restructuring Whitmore Pharmaceuticals to focus on genuine healing research. Declan had been promoted to head of security and family guardian, official title, official salary, and most importantly, official adoption papers, making him legally Ember's father. Francine watched her granddaughters from the window, knitting tiny baby booties. She'd seen Cassandra's doctor appointment results. Another Whitmore was on the way, and this time, no one would steal them. The bloodline's gift had been restored. The family was complete, and the future blazed with golden light. If this story didn't make you feel something, check your pulse. This family went through hell and came out the other side stronger. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe, because I've got more stories that will absolutely wreck you emotionally, in the best way possible. Drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it the twin reveal? The hospital resurrection? Ember calling Cassandra Mama for the first time? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, family isn't just blood. It's who you'd walk through fire for. Peace.